Hey guys, this is Ambar Sood. Welcome to my channel. And in this video, we're going to be talking about everything training. I've made a very similar video on the nutrition pyramid, which answers pretty much every question you have about nutrition by giving you a broader perspective about nutrition itself. And in this video, I'm going to give you a broader perspective about everything related to training. This also might answer every question that you might have in terms of training, and all of those questions that you have in your head will be sorted out by the end of this video, or at least give you some clarity on it. By the end of this video, my aim is to help you ask the right questions and help you put your resources and your actions in the right places to help you hit your specific fitness goals. A lot of the times the problems that we have are not really the problems we need to be worrying about at that point in our fitness journey. For example, on a daily basis, I get asked questions like, should I be doing high reps or low reps to gain muscle? Or should I be doing drop sets and supersets? And one of the most asked questions is, what is the best exercise for fat loss? Or should I be training to failure with every session? And all of these questions are something that even you might relate to. But all of this without the basic understanding of the concepts of periodization, volume, intensity is absolutely useless. So these are the basic things that we are going to understand through the training pyramid. What the training pyramid will do is help you understand the layers and the stages of training in terms of importance and priority. So just like the nutrition pyramid, the training pyramid also will help you understand what are the base and the most fundamental layers, and only once those are taken care of will the subsequent layers actually matter. And if you don't do it in that order, you're probably doing something wrong. For example, it would be wrong to ask how many times should I train in a week without understanding the concept of periodization, volume and intensity. Before we get into it, I want to tell you that the bottommost layers will contribute to about 80 to 90% of the progress that you want to make in terms of your training. And the upper and the top layers of the nutrition pyramid are only going to take care of 10 or maybe 20% of your training progress. So keep that in mind and let's get into it. Just like behavior and lifestyle that encompasses the entire nutrition pyramid, in the training pyramid, we have periodization that takes care of all the layers. Not understanding periodization is like going into a training regime without any planning. Periodization alone regulates everything and is the plan that will be put together to be able to manipulate every single layer of this training pyramid so that it can function in sync with one another. The base of the pyramid lies on adherence. You need to be able to adhere to the system in front of you. If you can't do that, there is no long-term planning that can take place. And if there's no long-term planning, there's no significant results that you can get out of your training regime. So the plan has to be convenient for you and it has to be in sync with the lifestyle that you live. Even if you have the best training plan in front of you, if you have the best coach with you, if you have everything going in your way and it's not set up according to your lifestyle, it's going to fall apart no matter how good everything is. You have the best gym in front of you, but if someone tells you to go 7 days in a week when you don't have the time for it and you don't have the energy for it, nothing's going to work. It's all going to fall apart. The next thing we're going to be talking about is the three components that make up the base and the fundamental of any training program: volume, frequency and intensity. And the reason I'm saying all of these three things together is because all of these three terms are interlinked with one another. If the intensity of your training is high, the frequency of your training has to be low. Because if you are training with 100% intensity, there's no way you can do it day in and day out. You need rest and you need time to recover so that you can come back at 100% for your next training session. The frequency of your training will be directly dependent on the intensity that goes into each session every week and every month. If you're doing anything other than that, it's just not optimal because you're asking for an injury and it's not something you can sustain for a very long time. So these three components are something you need to look into before going into the next few layers of the training pyramid. After we have the first two layers sorted, now we're going to be thinking about progress. We need to manipulate our training program in such a way that we adhere to the principles of progressive overload. So what does this mean? We need to keep challenging ourselves through our workout so that we constantly force our body to change with the external stimulus that we apply to it. This does not mean you just go and train mindlessly. What we need to take care of is we need to progress in terms of sets and reps, maybe your form and technique, the load that we use, of course, the volume of our training, the intensity of our training, maybe even improving mind-muscle connection over time. There are different variables that we need to be taken care of in terms of progressive overload. It's not just packing on weight onto the bar. That's not how it works. In other words, your progress is never linear. You're always going to be hitting roadblocks, but it's how you overcome those roadblocks that makes all the difference. Because initially it's all sunshine and rainbows and you're making gains on a weekly basis, monthly basis, you're hitting PRs because either you've been untrained for a long period of time or you're just getting into the gym. So your body is trying to adapt to the new stimulus that you're adding to it. But after a point of time, your body will get used to it and you will stagnate. And the amount of effort you have to put in is much more further down the line when you get more experienced with the weights that you use. And that's when you need to dig deep. That's when you need to understand your body, and that's where programming comes into play. And that's when even the smallest of changes can bring you the most results. And now comes the time when we think about what exercise we need to do and when we need to do it to get the maximum out of our training sessions. In other words, exercise selection. This is when we need to understand the strengths and weaknesses of our body. We need to understand our anatomy. We need to understand our training history. We need to understand our injury history. There's so many things to take care of before we go into understanding what exercise works for our body and what is it that we need to do differently so that we can specifically hit our fitness goals. For example, there might be some assistant exercises that you need to be doing to get better at the squat. If you're someone who wants to maximize their squat and wants to increase their numbers on a squat, you probably need to be squatting a lot more just to get the technique on point. But if you are someone who's looking to improve your lower body aesthetics, then maybe squatting isn't the best thing for you right now. You might be needing to do other accessory movements to help with hypertrophy in your quads or your hamstrings or your glutes or your calves, and you need to be isolating those movements. Or they may be needing to do low bar squats versus high bar squats. It's all dependent on your biomechanics, and that's what you need to understand. Not one exercise is good for everybody. Just because squats are good doesn't mean everyone needs to do it. Maybe it's a different type of squat that you need to do. Maybe it's some other exercise that you need to do to get better at the squat itself. So this is something you need to understand for yourself. Exercise selection is very individualistic, and that's what we need to keep in mind. The next layer of the training pyramid is rest periods. We keep asking how much rest should we take between exercises or between sessions. This is again something completely dependent on the way you train. If someone is training for strength, you probably need to be resting 3 to 5 minutes before every set, maybe even more, 8 to 10 minutes, depending on the intensity of your training session. If someone is training for hypertrophy, you probably need to be resting maybe 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes, versus someone who's training for endurance needs to probably rest for 30 seconds to 1 minute. It completely depends on how you are training, what your goal is, and what you're trying to improve on. Someone who's trying to get better at a 1 rep max or a 3 rep max or a 5 rep max squat versus someone who's doing calf raises for reps of 20 per set. You obviously need to be resting more when you're doing lesser reps versus something you're doing for hypertrophy for higher reps. So someone who's doing a 1 rep or a 3 rep max for a bench press needs to rest longer for someone who's doing a dumbbell press for 15 reps. So I hope you're understanding what needs to be taken into consideration when you're thinking of rest periods. The final icing on the cake is the variation that you use in terms of your training. The tempo, the cheat reps, the reps past failure, all of those things are basically tools in your arsenal to use to be able to make that 1% difference whenever you need it the most. These are not things you need to use on every single session. This is not what makes the base of your training or your fundamental of your training. This is something that you need to add once all of the other layers are taken care of. So when I keep getting asked, can I do drop sets? Can I do this? Can I do that? Are your fundamentals in place? Is your form and technique in place? Have you thought about your training intensity, your volume, your frequency, all of those things? Only after you've sorted out the rest of the pyramid should you be asking those questions. Definitely, tempo and other things that we use in order to make our training more exciting and more challenging has its place, but it is something you need to be thinking about after every single layer of that pyramid. And yes, these things are definitely helpful to get the maximum out of your session and to ensure that you are progressing and making things exciting. That is also a sign of progress. So definitely these are things that you can use, but once in a while, get your fundamentals in place first and then look at all of those things. I hope this gives you a broader perspective about everything training, because when I make new videos on training and I do talk about certain concepts, I'm going to link you back to this video so that you can see what you need to take into consideration at this point in your fitness journey. Just try to understand, be self-aware about where you are at right now and what you need the most in order to progress. You might be on the first layer, you might be on the second, or if you're on the fourth, you can just use the fifth layer to make that progress that you need. So maybe work backwards and try to understand what your goal is and then work towards it by specifically directing your actions towards the goal that you are trying to achieve. Because at the end of the day, who doesn't want to train for the longest period of time? You want to be 60, 70 years old and still be training, still be moving, still be playing with your grandkids for all you know. So think of longevity, think of sustainability, think of adherence. Once you have those things in place, you'll be golden and you'll be hitting your goals like never before. I hope you guys like this video. I hope you've learned something new, and I hope some of the concepts are clear to you now. If you like this video, please like, share, comment, and I would love to interact with you guys. Until then, keep training, keep making those gains, and I'm going to see you guys in the next video.